A couple of days ago, I watched the movie Tell Me Who I Am on Netflix, a documentary about an amnesiac and his twin brother, and the fallout from the truth being eventually made manifest in the lives of these two young men, and the revelations of their abuse at the hands of their mother and also at the hands of those that she pimped them out to, other influential and powerful people in the UK who are not mentioned by name, nor is the mother even mentioned by name in this documentary. I didn't know when I started watching this movie that it was going to end up being about Pedogate related issues, which was it's sort of like an all roads lead to Rome almost kind of thing these days. You know, I don't want to say every scandal is ultimately about Pedogate, but I'm tempted to say, when you get right down to it, look at all the scandalous things that are happening everywhere. One is tempted to say or to think that what it ultimately boils down to is this deep uber scandal, this what could be called super scandal, in the same sense that Jason Horsley talks about a super culture in Hollywood and elsewhere, whereby these kinds of the sexual exploitation of children is just a part of this scene. It's not a subculture, it's a super culture, and it's not a sub scandal, it's a super scandal that lies perhaps at the back of all the other scandals that you can think of, including the great COVID hoax that is unfolding right now. Everything is somehow linked, and I can't. There's not much to me that I can think of that's much worse than the destruction of innocence, the exploitation of children for depraved sexual purposes. So that's why I'm tempted to think that again, in the sense that all roads lead to Rome, all scandals lead to Pedogate ultimately. So since that time, I've watched a couple of movies. One other movie, a movie called Paterno, starring Al Pacino as Joe Paterno, the iconic coach, head football coach of Penn State, who was basically this, for most of his life, just this absolutely revered figure who could do no wrong, who was just this towering figure of integrity, and then in the last few months of his life, things emerged that suggested that he had this massive scandal involving one of his assistant coaches sexually abusing young men that he perhaps looked the other way from, or didn't look into enough, or didn't investigate enough, or played some role in covering up, and that ultimately ended up really ruining his reputation, and ultimately leading to his own demise. He died a very short time after. He was old. He'd been in coaching for decades, and then very soon after this all broke, he was a broken man and contracted cancer and died. So the two features that I saw, I said they were both movies, but only one of them is a movie, Paterno, and the other one is a show called The Crown, which is also on Netflix, along with Tell Me Who I Am. The Crown has had many seasons, and only one that I have watched is the most recent one, involving the British monarchy in the 1980s and 1990s, during the Princess Di and Prince Charles era of the British monarchy. What's interesting about both of these features, first of all, I should say, both highly budgeted. As you can see, they were able to bring in somebody like Al Pacino to play the role of Coach Bobby Paterno. So, and in The Crown, you know, it's obviously well shot and well acted, and you know, if they're not actually filming in Buckingham Palace or in these whatever other palaces that the royal family hangs out in, then it's a reasonable facsimile. So, and all the names are mentioned. You know, they're in both cases. Penn State's mentioned, Paterno's mentioned. In The Crown, all of the members of the royal family are talked about. Obviously, these are features that are establishment, or that are originated in the establishment, and so to some extent, they are. What should I say? How should I call them? They can't really be that dissident in their perspective, whether of the Penn State scandal or of the royal family and their shenanigans, because they are both done with the permission, obviously, of the authorities in both places, because without getting their permission, they wouldn't be able to use these names. They wouldn't be able to film in these kinds of places. They wouldn't be able to have this kind of budget to make these kinds of exposures of things. This is why anytime there's some mainstream movie or television feature that supposedly blows the lid off of everything, you know, you've got to look at it you've got to take it with several grains of salt. I'm thinking particular here of Oliver Stone's JFK, you know, made years and years ago, back in the 90s. Again, a huge budget, filled to the brim with well-known actors, big-name actors, and, you know, in its way, although I'm not a huge Oliver Stone fan, but he does have a certain talent, you know, filmically speaking, and he is a big name. So you had that movie back then in the 90s, JFK, that was supposed to be just blowing the lid off of the conspiracy to murder Kennedy, you know, and the military-industrial complex and everything. But it was being exposed by huge names in Hollywood, and you know, Hollywood is not really that separable from the military-industrial complex. So I think what you see with features like this is some effort to steer the narrative. I've never liked that word narrative used in this particular kind of way, but I'll use it now anyway with the quotes. To steer things, to steer the way this issue is talked about, right? With the royal family, with the revelations about Prince Andrew particularly, and also with Penn State, you know, things got to a point where they couldn't just keep the lid on these stories. It was obvious that a scandal had happened in these places. But what they could do is somehow control these stories, or they could you know, feed them to a point and then give them a certain direction and sort of in a way hijack the dissident movement that got provoked by the emergence of these scandals, by the conspicuousness of these scandals. And what I'm talking about can be, I think, very subtle. And I'm still not sure how to read Oliver Stone's JFK in this regard. I'm not a big fan of the movie itself. I've grown to basically think that it's probably mostly true, as far as what it posits. But I think it's somewhat cornily done ultimately. And so let me get to what I have to say about these two features, Paterno and The Crown, the latest season of The Crown. The Paterno movie focuses most on the character of Bobby Paterno and what he knew, what he didn't know, what he did when he found out that Sandusky was basically raping a young boy in the showers, and there were other stories out there, tons of stories surrounding Jerry Sandusky, this well-respected. I said he was a defensive coach. He was actually an offensive coach, well-respected in the league. And loved by his players, so it was a huge. It broke a lot of people's hearts to find out who he really was, what he was really like, and just to see that the whole Penn State program, which again was this model of college American football integrity, all American integrity. To see that, in fact, beneath the surface, there were such seedy, abominable goings on. And where the movie goes is it mostly focuses on Paterno himself, and it ends up being a kind of indictment of Paterno as someone who was maybe chose to look the other way and chose not to think about what was really going on, and ultimately paid the ultimate price for it, which is an interesting story. It's a powerful story in its way. But what you don't see emerging in this story, you don't see very much about Jerry Sandusky, and you don't see anything about his apparent involvement in not only abusing these kids himself, but using this charity to the supposed charity for underprivileged kids, using this charity to pimp these kids out to others, to rich and powerful people. You don't see it. There's nothing about that is not explored at all, not whatsoever. And in The Crown, there is one scene where Andrew, a young Andrew, emerges, and he's talking to his mum, the Queen Elizabeth II, and she realizes that he's got a problem. He's talking enthusiastically about this movie where this young girl is raped by a ton of predators. I can't remember the name of the movie. It's a movie that actually exists. I looked it up, and how he was obviously really excited by this movie, which suggested, what he was really about, the kind of things he was really into sexually. But it comes and it goes, and the main focus of this season of The Crown is all the conflict between Diana and Charles, which again is interesting in its way. Charles wanting to be with this other woman. I can't remember her name right now. Who sort of what he thought of more as his soulmate, but she was already married. So he was carrying on a clandestine affair with her, while he married Diana because the family put pressure on him to marry her because it was a good match, and she was from the right pedigree and everything. But we don't see, here's one thing we don't see anything about. We don't see Jimmy Savile emerge in this movie at all. And Jimmy Savile played a major role in the life of Prince Charles and the royal family. He knew them very well. He was a marriage counselor to Charles and Diana. We don't see that at all. So again, it's worth noticing that they took the scandal to a certain point. They addressed the stuff with Andrew because Andrew had stepped in it so badly, when he gave this catastrophic interview where he tried to exonerate himself, and nobody was buying it with regard to his involvement with Jeffrey Epstein and the sexual abuse of some of Epstein's underage prostitutes. One in particular, Virginia Dufresne. So they addressed that to a point. That scandal is addressed. Who Andrew was, what he was shaping up to be, and then we see this sort of Sturm und Drang and the sort of drama involving the royal couple, Charles and Diana. How everybody loves Diana, and Charles is sort of that nobody really cares about him, and their only interest when Charles and Diana go somewhere together is in her. She really has this she has this charisma, and she has this way of making she has this appeal to the common person. So there's all of that, but nothing at all about Jimmy Savile. If you just watched this program, this series, you would find absolutely nothing involving Jimmy Savile and his relationship to the royal family. It's just not there. It's just not mentioned. And so once again, like we see with these other two movies, and like we saw even with the documentary Tell Me Who I Am, which I think is much better, much more revelatory than these two movies, which are mostly just like, famous people and scandals, and that sort of, it's kind of a lower common denominator appeal, or low vibrational sort of appeal, just celebrities in hot water. But what all three of these features have in common is they let it be known to a certain extent that things are wrong, that things are amiss, that bad things are happening, but they leave out some very important pieces to the puzzle. And so one is tempted to ultimately conclude that in all of these films, the idea is to, again, steer you away from certain avenues, which would really be detrimental to the royal family, which would really be detrimental to Penn State and its storied history as the pinnacle of everything good about American college football and so forth. And so you see some bad stuff, right? They do put some dirty laundry out there, and you think to yourself, wow, they're really exposing these people. The royal family is not coming across very well here. Especially Charles is not coming across very well here. Penn State really isn't coming across very well here. Boy, they're really doing a number on Bobby Paterno, this revered figure. How iconoclastic it is for them to make this movie, in Hollywood and with a major director, Barry Levinson. Well, ultimately, we're steered away from the most scandalous aspects of these stories. And that's, I think, the thing that is one should take away from these accounts, that you're not going to get the whole truth. Not only are you not going to get the whole truth, you're going to be taken down, some blind corridor ultimately, and left with some things that's really not where the meat of the story lies, right? Ultimately, these are movies about misdirection. Whether this is intended, I don't know if the directors of these features thought to themselves, or the writers, the screenwriters, I don't know if they thought, well, let's intentionally do this, let's intentionally do that, but in any case, how it emerges, how it all takes shape, leads to this final understanding. Again, if you're watching closely, if you're reading between the lines, that the worst of these scandals is being left out of these accounts. And again, the worst of these scandals is Pedogate. The worst of these scandals is not just some random coach turning out to be a pervert who abuses kids, but this whole network of perverts who are extremely well funded, who are extremely organized, who are extremely powerful. Ditto for the royal family and Jimmy Savile and everything that he represented and everything that he was connected with, which is totally left out of the entire account. So I just wanted to comment on these movies again. I was propelled to watch these movies after seeing the Tell Me Who I Am, and anybody else who's seen these features, I'd be interested in hearing your perspective on anything, or if I've missed anything, or if I've left anything out myself, or if you disagree with me and think that these were true exposés, then let me know that too. Whatever. Thanks for watching. My name's Andy Nowicki. You can check out my work at altrightnovelist.com.